And we're live. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, David, welcome. So this is captive audience for May 26, 2020, a Tuesday, right after Memorial Day. I'm Kevin Hoare, the Communications Director for the Oregon Republican Party and 1st Congressional District Chair. And with me is the 5th Congressional District Chair and an all-around knowledgeable good guy, David Darnell. David, glad to have you here today.
This is 5 in Greek.
All right, I like that. Well, I thought it was like this. No, that's Roman. That's Roman.
Yeah. So we chatted just before we went live here, and we decided that we needed to burn up a little bit of time with stuff that didn't mean anything to give everyone a chance to share this broadcast in groups or other pages. And we decided that as long as my lips were moving, and they are in fact moving if you have video, that we would accomplish that task, since I don't really seem to have anything of any importance to say. So if you're tuned in, hit the share button, start a watch party. We're going to try and get our viewership up as much as possible. I got to reload my page here so I can get to the comments. And if that gives everybody a time to do that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin.
And if you want, we could actually talk about the Inside Scoop, which is coming up on Thursday. And every Thursday, we're having an hour-long program that is a small dollar fundraiser. If you contribute $5 when you sign up, you'll get a link and you can participate by posting questions. And this Thursday, David is?
Our Secretary of State candidate, Kim Thatcher, Senator Kim Thatcher. And she will be running against Oregon's very own AOC, Shemaya Fagan.
Schmagel.
Ms. Fagan, AOC of the West.
Let me go ahead and put this up on the screen so folks can see what we're talking about. This is going to be displaying here on the screen just in a second. See here? There we go. I'm getting the hang of this. All right, there we go. Can everybody see that? So, State Senator Kim Thatcher, hosted by Sonny Danforth from out in Umatilla County. You can see some of the interesting topics that we're going to talk about. And as you mentioned, she's competing against somebody who really represents the far left on the Democrat Party, and really in a job that's meant to be kind of down the middle. People who have a balanced view.
Yeah. In 2016, Republican Dennis Richardson, God rest his soul, was elected to that position, and Dennis was the very embodiment of being fair and equal, balanced and transparent. He took that job very seriously, and we all miss him. And Kim Thatcher will make a great replacement. Currently, we have an interim Secretary of State who is Republican. She served in the legislature, I believe. And but she took the job with the understanding that she would not run for or to be elected after she was appointed. So it's essentially an open seat, and it's going to be a great contest. We have a good, solid, conservative, articulate Republican running, and then, like you'd mentioned, the far left AOC of the West running as well. So it'll be a good time. And it'll be a good time talking to her on Thursday. That starts at 7 o'clock, doesn't it, Kevin?
Yes, it does. And here it kind of shows that if you can register, make sure you register by 6:30 p.m. On that Thursday to get the link. And you can actually sign up and subscribe from month to month for $20. And in the case of the upcoming month, you would then get 5 weeks for your $20, which would be a pretty good deal. And Secretary of State, by the way, is also in effect lieutenant governor, as Kate Brown found out when she succeeded the disgraced and corrupt former Governor Kitzhaber back in 2015.
Right.
It's an important job.
It's a very important job. She's also 1/3 of the land council.
Yep.
And so she makes, she can make decisions like that. And we've had, some horrible decisions just recently in that. But, probably I guess one of the big news of today is that the circuit court in Baker County, Judge Shirtcliffe, was given the ultimatum, I guess, by the Supreme Court, which I thought was rather odd. The Supreme Court issued a stay on his injunction, and that injunction, if you're not up to speed, essentially said that the governor's coronavirus lockdown orders were constitutionally only limited to 28 days unless she convened the legislature, which she did not do. And as you know, we're well beyond that 28 days, which would have been April 7th. And so he issued an injunction saying that those were null and void and invalid. And for about, I don't know how long it was. I thought it was like 5 or 6 hours, but maybe it was 8 hours. We were free in Oregon out from underneath that oppressive and really heavy-handed, job-killing, economy-crunching, entirely and totally unnecessary now lockdown. And so the Supreme Court said now I'm not a lawyer, but I always thought the Supreme, when you put something in front of the Supreme Court, they were supposed to look at it and think about it and decide and issue a decision. But instead of doing that, they went back to Shirtcliffe and they said, hey, look, you need to either vacate your order, in other words, take it back, or you have to prove to the court why you think it should stay. And I just think it's kind of an odd thing, Kevin. What do you make of that?
Well, they said they weren't going to rule on the merits, and a lot of people reacted when this happened last week, when I was on the Saturday edition of A Captive Audience, that perhaps it was just a move to intimidate the judge, because he did what I think anybody who believes in their own rulings would do, which, judges should believe in their own rulings. That seems to be like if you are a judge, you should, and this is what today's headline said. He had until 5 p.m. today to respond to this. We think you should get rid of your ruling, and or give us a reason why you shouldn't. And he said, here's why: because I was right, and I'm going to stand by it. This article here kind of clarifies that. So where we're at right now is we're waiting for arguments that are going to be made. So what's the process going forward here that we can expect?
Well, according to that article there, the state or the attorneys for Kate Brown need to have their case into the Supreme Court by the 28th of May. And then the plaintiff, if you will, which would be Shirtcliffe, needs to have their argument into the Supreme Court by June 2nd. And this is what I think is in play here. I think the Supreme Court knows that it was a good ruling, that the Constitution, the part of the Oregon Constitution that regulates public health emergencies, and that's what this was, is very clear. And I think, politically speaking, they're trying to shirk that decision as much as they possibly can. And I think you were right. I think they tried to intimidate the judge. I think they were hoping that he would fold and they wouldn't have to make this decision. But the fact of the matter is they are going to have to make this decision because no one's backing down from the table. And then you have to ask yourself, how much longer is it going to take, and what is the damage done? I mean, how many businesses right now are teetering on the edge, looking at the first of the month coming up, going, can we pay one more month's lease, without any revenue?
Not to mention the employees that they have been holding on to. If they got a PPP loan and they're trying to tread water until such time that they can open up and get back to functioning. And and frankly get back to functioning at something closer to the level that they were before this happened. Many businesses are facing 20, 30, 40% of the business that they had before, which, as anybody knows, your fixed costs can't go down very much. So if you're making 60% less than you were, you're probably not making a profit. And
yeah, it's an untenable business model to have your top line cut by anything, beyond maybe 5 or 10%. You get into a 50% drop in revenue, 70 and 80, 90% drop in revenue, you really no longer have a business. And so then you have to kind of figure out how, I'm a businessman, and then you have to kind of figure out how do you keep your assets that you'll have to maintain if you want to open up. And then the other question, and this is the big question on everyone's mind, is when can everybody open up at full capacity and try to get that top line back up there to where your business works the way it worked, before March 7th.
Well, and the governor is claiming to have like unlimited power here, based on a law which the folks that filed this lawsuit, Kevin Mannix and several other lawyers, banded together to file this suit in the beginning, said that she doesn't have unlimited power for unlimited time. The law that she was using was misapplied because it's for when there's like complete devastation from, say, an earthquake, and you have a circumstance where people can't function. This is not the case now, and it's kind of interesting that I read in that article, Ellen Rosenblum, our esteemed Attorney General and wingman for the governor, repeatedly on just about everything, said that the law clearly allows for the governor's powers to issue executive orders during an extraordinary time. That's pretty vague. She added that many of the orders have already been modified, as most of the states, counties are in the first phases of opening. So she's trying to say, well, but we're opening anyway. And then she says this, completely undoing the measures she's put into place, the governor's measures, could undermine what we've done so far and undermine sacrifices everywhere all Oregonians have made to get there. So in other words, in order to maintain the power to completely devastate the rest of the businesses, that's the justification. The destruction that's already happened is the justification for her having unlimited power for unlimited time. That's an interesting legal rationale. That suggests that maybe they're going to have some troubles with this case, even with the Supreme Court, where I think 7 have been appointed out of the 9 by Kate Brown.
Right. And of course, those Supreme Court, justices are under, they get elected after they're appointed. The next time an election comes up, they have to be elected by, the people that they might possibly rule against. And I think that's what this stall tactic was to move that on. But, the bigger issue, and we talked about this before on Captive Audience, is why. Why are these Democrat governors in these states holding on to this power and trying to keep the state down as long as they can? And the only answer is it's got to be holding out for some sort of federal bailout. If there's talk from Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats that you just hang on out there and we'll get you some bailout money, then, the more damage that is done, the more bailout money I guess you're entitled to. And it has nothing to do with serving the public interest anymore. It's entirely political. Yeah,
in moments of extreme honesty, we've actually heard several governors, such as Gavin, say this is a great opportunity for us to do all the policies we wanted to do before this ever happened. Which doesn't seem to have much to do with solving the problems that people are facing now, adding new ones.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into something else I wanted to talk about, Kevin. Is Politico put out an article, and it was about how worried and how concerned Democrats are, and we're talking about DC Democrats. We're talking about the people that run the campaigns all the way across the country. But more specifically, the Biden campaign and the campaign to, make sure that Trump is not reelected, and that includes them all. So their primary concern right now, and I read this article and I came away with it just shocked. Their primary concern is that the economy will recover before November and Trump will be reelected. The thing that is on their minds, these Democrats' minds, is that they don't want people to go back to work. They don't want businesses to reopen because they feel it'll help Trump get elected, and that just blew me away. It floored me when I read that. I thought they really want people to go under for political reasons.
Yeah, the article, which I'll display here in just a second, really goes through, and it's Politico, so it's not some
No.
Republican
No,
outlet.
heck no.
They actually, the headline, which I'll display here, in fact shows an advisor, an Obama advisor, says, "We are about to see the best economic data we've seen in the history of this country," says a former economic advisor to Obama. And then the article goes on to talk about how this recovery, this rebound, doesn't bode well for them politically. And
yeah,
and it actually goes on to say that truthfully, the most explosive monthly employment numbers and gross domestic product ever is what people are going to see. And it's going to happen here in the summer as we're leading up to an election. That is my big worry, is what the guy said.
Yeah. And you translate that, of course, what he's talking about, his big worry is that we will have a bounce, and we're going to have a huge bounce once everything opens up. We know that. It remains to be seen, what the long-term effects are. Personally, I think the long-term effects are going to be much longer than the bounce, but there is going to be a bounce, and his primary concern is if we have this bounce, that Trump will be able to say, hey, look at these numbers, we're bringing it back. And instead of looking at it as this bounce are people getting back to work, people getting a paycheck again, people who can pay their mortgage again, people who can pay their car payments, pay down their credit cards, and for some people just eat. And that concerns Democrats. Democrats would rather see people default on their mortgage, default on their car payment, default on their credit card payments, and really go without food if it means bad numbers for President Trump heading into an election. And that's just unconscionable to me.
Because it seems like the only thing that does unite Democrats is anything that damages President Trump. That's the one thing they all care about. That's why he describes this as a worry. And I love what Larry Kudlow, the White House National Economic Council head, said that he wanted to compliment this Obama advisor. He says he knows him well and he's a straight shooter. Hats off to him. I guess this advisor committed what's known in Washington, D.C. as a Washington gaffe, where he accidentally told the truth, and he's going everywhere now.
Yeah.
But,
yeah,
we're worried, and Americans are worried. And if this alleviates their worries, that's apparently a Democrat worry.
Yeah, it apparently is. And, of course, you'll never see it from the media because, they get quiet on anything that a Democrat does. But if I were a Democrat voter, I would look at that mindset and I would think, you really, really don't care if I sink or swim, just so long as your political means are affected. And that would shine me away. Yeah, of course, I'm not a Democrat, not going to be one.
Well, and really rooting for the country always seems to be like they say, oh, America first. Well, actually, that's kind of what Americans are for. They're for the country, and they're for themselves succeeding. And I know that it was a big problem that the Democrats saw back in February, that the economy was going so well. and that might actually please people. And this
Yeah.
hit, and then all the circumstances that have happened. And now they're concerned that we might pull out of these circumstances. Now, the Democrats have talked about what they're going to do. They say it might be an opportunity to radically transform the economy in the way they would like to see it. The president seems to be talking about how can we restore the economy to that February 2020 level. And the contest here this fall seems like it's going to come down to, do you think that radically transforming the economy and going the Joe Biden route? Or do you think that maybe the president that we've got is the one that can actually deliver an economy like we had?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'll tell you what, it's truly telling how political this entire situation has become. You know, what most of us thought was a simple precaution, and it seemed like a good idea given the extremely limited data at the time. It never seemed like a good idea to me, but I'm not in the mainstream. I'm a little bit more concerned with the Bill of Rights than apparently some people. But most of us thought, you know, I mean, if we stay home for a few weeks and flatten the curve, you know, whatever it is. And now it's just turned into a political football that seems like they want to carry this thing down the field until November. And I just don't know about that.
Well, it also, there's another issue that I think has been coming up and not hearing too much of in the news. But I caught a headline that was very interesting. I can't display it right now because apparently the Washington Post doesn't like to do that if you don't subscribe. But it basically comes down to that there's somebody that's concerned, a reporter, that President Trump being tough on China might imperil the U.S. In being able to borrow more money from China. And that's a fascinating headline, right? That says so much right there because their chief concern right now is that we'd upset our masters in Beijing. Really? Upsetting our masters in Beijing, but there's been a lot that's transpired these past few weeks. And here's just a sampling of some of the headlines. Tensions with China escalate as U.S. accuses it of blocking U.S. airlines. Well, that would have been front page news if it wasn't so bad for China Joe and his son, who seemed to benefit financially from a relationship with China. UK Prime Minister orders for plans to end reliance on Chinese imports. So it's not just the United States, apparently. You know, President Trump's talked about this. And then, of course, very recently, we've been hearing about making sure that our essential medical supplies can be sourced here in the United States and not rely on China for that, who has threatened to cut those off.
Yeah.
The Canadian Prime Minister says China does not seem to understand the independence of Canada's judiciary. Well, that's interesting. So that's that whole Huawei case and the CEO that's facing extradition to the United States for violating U.S. law. And then to top it all off, so the U.S. Senate Republicans are threatening to re-examine the U.S.-China relationship. And how did China respond? Well, they responded to the president by saying, stop wasting time examining China's role in the coronavirus being unleashed on the United States and the world. And then they promised severe consequences for Senator Tom Cotton, Representative Dan Crenshaw, the Missouri Attorney General. And then our lovely Speaker Pelosi responded to that by blocking an investigation of China because apparently that would threaten their political interests after the communist regime threatened U.S. senators by name. So it really fits a lot with what we just talked about how they do seem to be more concerned about how an economic recovery would help President Trump. And they're also concerned about the fact that they think they could establish that the president is somehow responsible for the entire coronavirus situation, when in fact it's China. And when China gets called out for that, they start issuing threats against legislators. Since when does a political party in the United States, take the side of a country threatening people in the other political party? When's that happen?
Since Trump was elected?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we know what is happening in Hong Kong right now. China looks at this as an opportunity to perhaps seize power and get rid of all the people that have been protesting their authoritarian rule. And then I just saw this within the last few hours here. China deploys 2 aircraft carriers to stoke tensions with U.S. in new Cold War. Wow, there's something going on.
Yeah.
But has that been flooding the news across the country? Not that I've seen. I've seen these reports, but it seems like they're more concerned about trying to highlight tweets that they think don't present President Trump in the best light. Twitter, as we saw today, is trying to censor him, but then apologized, said they couldn't. What's your analysis of all of this at this point?
Well, you know, Democrats like the communists. You know, they're I can't explain it. I mean, you know, it's not a new phenomenon. I remember watching an old newsreel of Ronald Reagan. I think before he was president, and he was talking about JFK and the fact that JFK was a Democrat, and he made some allusion to, you know, don't let that pretty face fool you. It's the same old Karl Marx under that guy as every other one. You know, I mean, they've never met. I mean, they're Che shirt wearing commies. I mean, they like the whole idea, and that's where they want to move to. And of course, you know, Trump won't have anything to do with that. And they're just beside themselves, and you know, they'll do anything. And you know, the other thing, you know, about China, our masters, and buying our debt, they own a minuscule amount of our debt, a minuscule amount. I should have the number. If Jeff's watching, he could probably post it, because we talked about
5%.
Yeah, it's nothing. Most of our debt is owned by American citizens. It's owned in securities. It's owned in bonds, in people's retirement accounts, and so you know, we're not beholden to them. We don't need their money. You know, we're the ones that are, you know, funding their economy. They're not funding ours. So I can just kind of all. I guess I can't say that on TV, but they can just kind of all go away.
Well, and it really feels like at this point maybe China is looking for a way to weigh in on the election, influence it if they can, with the help of Nancy Pelosi. But the jaw dropper is somebody gets threatened in Congress by a foreign power.
Yeah.
And the leader of one of the houses of Congress takes the side of the foreign power.
Yeah, of the person that's doing the threatening. Yeah, yeah. You can't make this stuff up, Kevin. I mean, the Babylon Bee can't even, and they're good. You know, yeah. The Babylon Bee is good. They can't even make this stuff up.
I think the Babylon Bee just published a headline the other day saying they were no longer going to they were no longer going to make up any posts about Joe Biden. They're just going to publish what he says verbatim, because that's as good as it gets.
Yeah. That is as good as it gets. Well, hey, we're getting kind of up long in the tooth on time here, but I did want to touch on one thing that is kind of close to something that it's something I've been advocating for years. Jeff Reynolds, who hosts this show sometimes, and I and several other people have been engaging in this chat thread, this messenger thread for. I'm thinking it's got to be close to 10 years. This thread has been going on. And so we go back, and they're Tea Party people, you know, from the Tea Party days. And we keep going around about what's happening in America. And one of our members keeps bringing it back to education and how, you know, the education system is, you know, is ensuring our future, whether that be good or whether that be bad. And so a USA Today poll puts 60% of Americans likely to seek, some sort of homeschooling or distance learning thing next year, with 30% of Americans responding saying they're very likely to not send their kids back to school. And my take on that is this could be the game changer for America. When education is taken back by the parents, when parents are educating their kids, kids are being educated by their parents, and parents become educated in the process. We were a homeschooling family, and you learn a lot when you homeschool. I think we could end up with, it's going to take a generation or so, but we could end up with an electorate that probably hasn't been not this informed for many, many years. And I'm encouraged by it.
Well, this article by our own Jeff Reynolds here in PJ Media cites these statistics. I've got this up on the screen, and it also has a link to an article where a Harvard law professor calls for a ban on homeschooling, saying it's dangerous to leave children with their parents.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is really a circumstance where people are getting to try this for themselves. They're actually seeing, and some of it is like a hybrid system. I think that's how many people have used the distance learning opportunities, such as through the virtual charter school system, to supplement the homeschool efforts that they've had. And they're finding that they actually have the power and they can make sure that their kids are learning. So
yeah,
no longer will the lies work.
And interestingly, it's not upper income people either that are more likely to homeschool. It's a lower income, lower socioeconomic, if you want to call it, families that are deciding, the schools in many areas and, poorer neighborhoods, that's another way to say it, are not as good. And they're going, screw that. I'm gonna educate my kids at home, and it's just not a better education that you get out of homeschooling, but you get a stronger family, and that will have a huge effect on America.
And it returns the power to the students and the parents, which that's really popular with students and parents, oddly enough.
Yeah. Dab Ellis in the comments here. She says it's a game changer. She says no more brainwashing for our kids. And if you've ever kind of deprogrammed your kids, if you're a far right wing nut like myself, and you've ever had to deprogram like your grandkid, what kind of stuff's being taught in school. And if you're homeschooling, you don't necessarily have to inject that. Now, I'm sure that some of the people, who responded to that poll are, maybe far whacked out on the left, and, will still teach their kids whatever. But I think even those people have a stronger family, and family's been under attack in America for many, many years. And I just think it's a great, the first time I saw that, it was some other poll and it was like 40% or something like that. I just said, man, this could change things.
Well, and somebody said something to me just like this about telehealth, just today.
Yeah.
Telehealth. So, a bunch of people tried it. They said it was too dangerous to do it. Now people are doing it. Seems like they get seen sooner than 6 or 8 weeks. They have to wait for an appointment.
Yeah. I've done it several times.
And it's better than waiting forever for an appointment, which we know is often what happens. Why don't we mention one more time here before we go, the Inside Scoop. Want to put that back up on the screen here. So make sure you get registered for this by 6:30 on Thursday. And this is Senator Kim Thatcher, State Senator Kim Thatcher. She's running for Secretary of State and competing against Oregon's AOC, Shemia Fagan. And it's from 7 to 8 p.m. It's $5, or you can get a whole month of these Inside Scoop sessions on Thursday nights for paying $20 and subscribe. So I think that's something everybody wants to check out. We won't be doing one of these captive audiences on Thursday, but because we'll be making way for Kim Thatcher and Sunny Danforth on the Inside Scoop.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. And of course, we'll be back here. I'm not sure who's up tomorrow, but we'll be back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And another comment, I think David made the same, was the same commenter. If you set your notifications, if you set your notifications to be notified from our Facebook Live page, you will get almost an instantaneous notification. Facebook does prioritize Facebook Live, and so I know a lot of accounts that I follow, just the minute they go live, I get a notification. So if you hit the notifications when we go live, you'll catch us every night.
And we look forward to having folks join us and share and organize watch parties with others to watch as well. Got to admit, people got information here that they're probably not hearing or seeing really anywhere else.
Probably not. It's we live in an information overload age, and of course, that one meme I saw, is we thought that 50 years ago we thought lack of information was the problem. Well, it's not really the problem. We got all the information we need. It's what is the good information? What is the correct information? That's what we need more of.
Well, hopefully we provided some insight today. Thank you, David, for joining me here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
And I'm Kevin Hoare, the Communications Director for the Oregon Republican Party, and we will see you tomorrow at 6. Thanks for joining us on the Inside Scoop.
Good night.
Good night.